So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second regulation review that we are going to start in a few minutes. This is the draft civil aviation air operator certification and administration regulations. The regulations, we are going to go through the regulations using, we are going to be led by Ms. Elizabeth Kamene, who will be taking us through the regulations. We've also received quite a number of comments requesting for participation or live broadcast by the public. We will be taking your comments, and how we will go about it. We will require any person who wishes to be heard or make verbal presentations to just type under the questions section, and then they will be enabled to make their oral or verbal um, presentations or pass their questions to the panelists that we have ahead of us. During the start of the meeting, we had indicated that our official, the session will be officially opened by our corporation secretary, who will be making remarks on behalf of the Director General. So I want to invite Mr. George Mogaka to make the opening remarks on behalf of the Director General.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As indicated by Dennis, my name is George Mogaka, Corporation Secretary, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, standing in for the Director General, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, Captain Gilbert Kibe, who for reasons beyond his control is not able to join us for the meeting, but will be joining later. The DG had prepared a speech, and it is indeed my privilege and pleasure to read the same out to you verbatim. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you this morning to this virtual stakeholder consultation meeting hosted by the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. Let me first thank each and every one of you for finding time from your busy schedules to attend this important engagement in our industry. The main goal of this meeting is to receive your input, views, and comments on the 30 draft civil aviation regulations. These draft regulations come in the wake of the Civil Aviation Regulations 2018 that were promulgated during the ICAO USOAP CMA audit that Kenya underwent in the year 2018. The current amendments are motivated by the desire to ensure the regulations remain responsive to industry operational needs, as well as the need to domesticate amendments to the international standards and recommended practices issued by the International Civil Aviation Organization. It is important to note that Kenya scored 78.02% during the 2018 USOAP CMA audit, wherein the 2018 regulations that constitute critical element number 2 contributed 85.71% of that score. KCAA is desirous of addressing the shortcomings that were in the 2018 regulations to ensure that the critical element 2 score is at 100%. As mentioned, in the course of implementing the 2018 regulations over the first 4 years, it has been observed that the regulations can be improved to ensure effective and efficient facilitation of the industry while observing the required ICAO standards and recommended practices. As you may also note, we are operating in difficult times, evidenced by the manner in which we are conducting this activity today. I urge you to bear with us and effectively participate in this event to ensure that Kenya and our industry has a realistic and workable set of regulations. Finally, I urge you all to seize this opportunity to provide your comments and input on the draft regulations 2021, and feel free to engage the facilitators on any areas of concern. On behalf of the authority, I wish to reiterate our commitment to ensuring safe and secure aviation operations in Kenya. Rest assured that we will not move alone, but we will walk side by side as we provide our traveling public with a reason to be proud of our services. Now, having said that, I wish on behalf of the Director General, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, Captain Gilbert Kibe, to officially declare the virtual stakeholder engagement meeting officially opened. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. George Mugaka. And we confirm that we will be engaging with the public in terms, as I had mentioned before. Maybe if you had missed it, in case you intend to make any oral presentations, you are kindly requested to indicate it under the question section. We'll be able to enable you make the or oral presentation, but you're still encouraged to ensure that any questions that you have, you document them also under the questions section. So without further ado, I want to request the presenter for the session, that's Ms. Elizabeth Kamene, to take us through the draft civil aviation air operator and the draft civil aviation air operator certification and administration regulations 2021. Ms. Kamene.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session. We are going to take you through the Civil Aviation Draft Air Operator Certification and Administration, the proposed regulations for 2021. My name is Elizabeth Kamene, and I'm with the Flight Operations team, and we will take you through this session. We have received your proposal and comments, several of them. We'll review them and incorporate them accordingly after this session. As Dennis mentioned, kindly add your questions in the question comment and the chat comment. So I'll take you through the matrix on the proposed amendments. As displayed in the share window, okay. See. So in the proposed draft regulation for AOC and admin, we had addressed question regulation number 2, interpretation. We just had a new definition on state of manufacturer. And we also, of importance is regulation number 8, sub-regulation 1, where there's a proposal to have the AOC validity extended to 24 months instead of the usual 12 months. This was from industry request. So that was suggested as 24 months. In regulation 8, sub-regulation number 1, there was a concern in Charlie, that is C, that the recency of operation had not been addressed. And so we came up with a schedule to explain what it means to say that when the operations has been suspended, what is operation? So that one will be addressed in a schedule. In sub-regulation 8, sub 2, regulation 8, sub-regulation 2, it was not specified when the suspension or revocation shall be, when the document needs to be returned to the authority. So we came up with the proposal of 14 days. Okay. In Regulation 14, there was a lot of amendment and discussion on qualification for the personnel, management personnel. We've received several comments and we are taking that into consideration, especially on the qualification of the chief pilot, the head of safety, and the head of quality. Okay. Sub-regulation 14, correction 18, sub 4. It was just a rewording. That's formatting only. And yeah. Sub-regulation 27. The demonstration flights should be one flight or more as prescribed by the authority. So the prescribed part we amended to say the demonstration flights shall be as specified by the authority. So the authority will specify in the technical guidance material on the demonstration flight. We've seen a comment on the same, and that one will be addressed. Regulation 30, sub-regulation 9. We amended the word aeroplane to say aircraft to address all types in the industry. I'll skip to sub-regulation regulation 35, sub-regulation 2, where due to the industry practice, there was an amendment to say the seating capacity is moved from 50 passengers to 36 passengers, one cabin crew member. This was brought about by what we've observed in the industry during demonstration flights. We've received comments and we're addressing them. If you look at sub-regulation 7 of the same 35, it says the number of cabin crew members used during a successful aircraft evacuation demonstration shall be the minimum cabin crew complement for the aircraft type for that operator. And that is what informed the amendment of sub-regulation 2 of 35. But your comments have been received, will be reviewed and feedback given. On regulation 57, on safety program and management systems, we had omitted several issues, but of notice is sub-regulation 2, where it says the operator of an aeroplane of a certified takeoff mass in excess of 20 kilograms shall establish and maintain. We've seen the comment and it will read should and not shall for sub-regulation 2. And the 3 will say shall because of 27,000 kilograms and above. That one is very well noted. On aircraft tracking, regulation 58, we've added that text to transpose the requirements of Annex 6, Part 1. The whole of that. There was no comment on the same. Regulation 60, which is about aircraft maintenance. In AOC and admin, we really amended these characters so that we can clarify and also broaden the scope of preventive maintenance. So it reads where an operator shall ensure that the maintenance, overhaul, modification, repair, and inspection of its aircraft or aeronautical products. But for further clarification, the Airworthiness Department will be on Wednesday from 8:15. Maybe they will clarify anything that is of concern. Okay, regulation. So I'll go to 62, sub-regulation 2 and see. The word certificate of release to service is amended to read maintenance release throughout the regulation. And it's the one that goes down that way. And where is it? 60. All this is for airworthiness, and we've just amended words. It's all about drafting into, say, maybe certified or approved. For example, regulation 63.5, It says we amended the word functions approved or accepted by the authority to just say functions accepted by the authority. We remove the word approved because the authority will accept. Okay. I'll look for the next one. So regulation 70, subregulation 12, approval of an operator's maintenance program. There was a repetition, so that one is just rewording to amend the same. And then we introduced a new regulation on advertising. A number will be given later. This one is a new regulation to say that an AOC applicant shall not advertise as a certified air operator unless an approved air operator certificate has been issued. The same regulation is in AMO regulations and ATO regulations. So we just borrowed that one to include in the AOC and admin regulation to avoid people who are advertising before they have been given a certificate. Then we added the sixth schedule that was previously mentioned in 2018 regulations, and made it as a sixth schedule. So there were several definitions that had been omitted in the regulations for dangerous goods, and that definition was put under regulation 77, subregulation 2, to include the same. This one was from the previous sessions with the industry. So up to there, that's the matrix that we had for the AOC and admin regulations.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kamene, for taking us through the matrix. I have not seen any person who intends to make an oral presentation or give a verbal response. So what we'll be doing right now, we'll be going through some of the comments that we have already received and give feedback as appropriate. We might not be able to display all the comments that we have received, but we will be taking you through some of what has already been received by the authority. So Ms. Kamene will take us through those comments that have so far been received.
There's a question by Josefa Sanali on agriculture operations, the flight duty period to be applied. And this will be addressed in operations of aircraft for commercial air transport regulations, which will be tomorrow. The session will be tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning. The next question is the requirements for designated check pilot. That one was also addressed in the operations of aircraft regulations. There's no any other comment. Can check at what we received from email. So there's a question on qualification of chief pilot for regulation number 14, subregulation number 3 from the industry. So the comment is the requirement for the minimum qualification for chief pilot, a commercial pilot license with appropriate rating. to be a PIC for at least the largest aircraft used in lieu of the ATPL if the requirements for the largest aircraft in the AOC require only a CPL. The comment. So someone is requesting that the requirement to be rated in the largest aircraft for an AOC with many large aircraft is not an ICAO standard. The additional of managerial experience is appreciated and is what is important in running the chief pilot. So I think the comment, what we've seen from the other comments is the requirement for the chief pilot is not to be the person with the qualification on the highest, largest aircraft, where the operator is operating more aircrafts in another fleet. So they're asking if the person can be rated in fleet which is the most in that company. So that comment is received, it will be reviewed, and it will be incorporated accordingly. The other regulation is on the cabin crew, Regulation 35.2. That one I already addressed. There's a suggestion that the number remains 50. And so that it does not, the comment here is the regulation should be retained as was documented. Reducing the ratio of cabin crew requirement from 50 to 36 does not increase the level of safety. The extra cabin crew should be determined by the operator based on the service level above the requirements as indicated in 35 subdivision 7. So the reason why the 36 was coming along was because from experience, when the operators are demonstrating, most of the time they are having to have 2 cabin crew, even for an aircraft seater of 50. But this one will also be discussed, and that's why we came up with Sub-Regulation 7, where we say if you demonstrate with 2, then your minimum shall remain 2. But we'll also go through that as a group and come up with the final draft and share with that. Let me see something else from another operator. Okay. Another comment is on Regulation 8, Sub-Regulation 1, Delta, which explains on the kind of operations for various operators. Operations a certificate holder is authorized to conduct as specified in operation specifications. So this was a draft where we talked about on-demand operations. We will expound the same in the schedule as a promise on Regulation number 8. We'll come up with a schedule where it will explain domestic, flag supplemental, commuter, or demand operations. We had borrowed this one from another CAA. We will expound it and make it a regular schedule in our AOC and admin regulations. Another question is on Regulation 14, qualification of personnel. There's a suggestion where we say managerial experience. Our recommendation is that we add experience in commercial operations. We shall consider that. Or another question about the chief pilot again, the issue of to be a PIC for the largest aircraft in the AOC. So that one is also considered. We will consider that. Okay. Regulation 57, Sub-Regulation 2 will be addressed and change the word shall to read should as per the Annex 6, Part 1, 3.3.2. Any other question from the chat? Bajaber. So Captain Bajaber, we have your question. For the requirement of a chief pilot, what necessitated the change? The most limiting industry standard as FAA 121 is to be rated on a large aircraft and not largest aircraft. There's no definition of largest aircraft in the industry, but we have a definition of large aircraft. This would be for large aircraft operator. So this one is well received and shall be considered. Any other comments from the dispatchers? Send admin. So another comment from another group on regulation number 8. The matrix states that the validity is 24 months, while the draft still shows a validity of 12 months. That shall be amended accordingly. On the regulation number 20 on flight recorder records, the owner of the aircraft, or in the case where it is leased, the lessee, shall ensure to the extent possible in the event of aircraft becomes involved in an accident. So I'm guessing we need to amend and read aircraft. Okay. There's no other. So from the other comments from Kenya Dispatchers Association, the interpretation, the definition for FOO, there's a suggestion that it is defined accordingly to ensure that it reads dispatchers who are licensed. So that one we'll consult legal on the same and come up with a solution for that. There was also a suggestion for us to define what we mean by saying technically qualified personnel. So we'll borrow that from sources and we'll come up with a solution for the same. There was a suggestion that on regulation 13.2, we add security personnel as part of management personnel. So that one shall be discussed. So regulation 14.5, subregulation 5, there was a suggestion that we delete ground operations, the word ground operations, to only address flight dispatchers. And we shall discuss that one. There was also a question on 14.7 where it says, where we give a leeway to say where there is of comparison, of comparable experience as a regulator. What do we mean by the same? So the legal team will advise us and we'll get back to you. Regulation 18, sub-regulation 3C, the retention period for documents of other personnel was not addressed in this regulation and the previous ones. So we'll come up with a suggestion of the duration period for retention of documents. Internet. Okay. Where it addresses ground operations, and 41, 41.1, 43.1, 48.1, they all address ground operations. There's a suggestion that that word ground operation is replaced by FOOs and flight dispatches. Regulation 51.2, there's a regulation to add enough FOOs instead of just saying enough control centers. Okay. Subregulation 3 of 51, there's a suggestion that we reward the word to include scheduled and unscheduled flights, or we just talk about general flights instead of saying scheduled operators only. Okay. 53.1, there's a suggestion that we add continuous two-way radio communication in the sum. So I'll also go through comments on, I'll go comments through from DGM, Mr. Kamlesh Tank. Regulation 90, we will amend it to comply with the current technical instructions for transport of dangerous goods by air, and also only address the current requirements of CBTA and Regulation 81 also. We also advise us to revisit this Part 7 of AOC and admin regulations, 78 to 89, and be specific on the current requirements. Regulations concerning security on dangerous goods will harmonize what we have in our security regulations and also see what is addressed by the ICAO technical instructions. And most of the items on security and requirements by the operator are addressed in our technical guidance materials because everything can be addressed in the regulations. So we have them in the technical guidance materials, and we require the operators to include those requirements in their manuals, the documents to their personnel. And also when we're doing audits, we have them in our audit checklist. So we have another question from Freddy Cotieno. Why we have clause deny military aviators from pursuing KCAA licensing? So this question from Frederick Otieno, I think, is addressing personnel licensing regulations. They will look at it and get back to you. So any other requirements? Okay, from Captain Abubakar. Cabin crew requirements, while in a minimum of 1 for 36 is okay, but having 36 as a quota makes the airline uncompetitive, as this increases operating costs, yet the 36 is not based on scientific requirement. So we had borrowed this one from ICAO Doc 1072, requirements for cabin crew. So we shall revisit this and consider your comments. Together with the legal department, we shall come up with a complete requirement for the same. But the basis of it was the number of cabin crew you demonstrate with should be the number of cabin crew you operate with. Any other comment? Dennis? Any other? Dennis? Return of address address that can to cabin crew 54/7. Okay, we have another comment. I'm only reading what I've not addressed because most of the comments are common. Regulation 37. Correction, Regulation 13, 14, and 35 has been repeated severally, so we'll review that. Regulation 57, sub-regulation 4, there is a comment that the operator shall ensure that the flight data analysis program is non-punitive and contains adequate safeguards to protect the sources of data in accordance with civil aviation safety management regulations. And there's a reference ICAO Annex 6 Part 1 3.3.3. So this one will be reviewed and adapted accordingly. So Regulation 7013 sub 13. Okay, so there's a comment here that we should renumber the other regulations going downwards. And there's a repetition, so that one we'll look at it. Thank you. And Regulation 80, sub-regulation 4, there's a typo. We will renumber the same. next question is for Dennis. Going to answer that question by Joseph Maina.
Mr. Maina, I wish to respond to your question on whether KCAA files differences between KCAS and ICAO annexes or just adopts KCAS in tandem with the annexes. I'd like to confirm that in case of any variations or differences with an ICAO standard or recommended practices, KCAA will file, or Kenya will file a difference as appropriate with ICAO. Thank you.
We're standing by for any other questions on the chats. We've addressed most of the items that were sent on mail. Stop. So Dennis will take the stage and address the other issues.
So thank you very much, Ms. Kamene, for taking us through the air operator certification and administration regulations 2021. I believe most of the questions that have been raised through the question section have been responded to adequately. We wish to invite any participants or any person who would wish to make oral presentations to indicate so that they can be given the platform to go ahead and address the meeting. I can see there's a comment there by Nicholas Mutua on why do regulations have to be repealed? Can they just be amended? This will reduce the workload on us as operators because redoing all manuals is a tedious task. We confirm that regulations can be amended. However, the process will lead to more confusion than clarity. A good example that I can give at the moment is what is happening with the Civil Aviation Act that you are very much aware about. We do have the 2013 Civil Aviation Act, that's the principal act, and the 2016 Act, which eventually means that you have to read the two documents side by side in case you want to have any interpretation of whatever the provisions are contained in the Civil Aviation Act. So to make matters easier, it's much better to promulgate new regulations to ensure that that confusion that might occur will not, any confusion that might occur is alleviated. I've also received a number of comments in terms of participation. It seems that during the first presentation, the one that we were doing on personnel licensing, members had only opted for that particular session and might be facing some challenges joining the second session, which is the AOC and admin, part of the regulation review exercise. I'm guided that what you need to do is go back to the registration link and ensure that you choose to participate in all the sessions. That will ensure that when we go on a break, you will be able to automatically join the preceding part of the presentations that are being done. Okay, I'll still use this opportunity to invite any members who might have comments they wish to make. I want to repeat again, when it comes to participation in all the sessions that we have, kindly ensure that on the registration page you choose all the sessions so that you join in automatically. Otherwise, you'll need to re-register so that you can participate in the preceding part of the meeting. I think with that, I'll want to take us for a 10-minute break so that we have the airworthiness team coming in for purposes of responding to the portion of their questions that arose during the first presentation on personnel licensing regulations. Probably just before we leave, I can see there's a question there by Jack Wamburi on designated check pilot requirements. Is it possible for the authority to come up with provisions for single engine, single crew operation, VFR operations? I think actually we appreciate the comment, and I would like to guide that this will adequately be handled during the session on operation of aircraft commercial air transport, that is tomorrow, that will start us off tomorrow morning. Okay, I can see a comment by Ali Omar. Dear KCAA, we would like to forward concerns concerning this process, and I suggest we restart the process. We missed the licensing part, and now the AOC and admin. There were no clear SOPs on how the process will be undertaken. So we have registered that concern, and as I had mentioned again, you are kindly requested under the registration portal to choose all the sessions. That way you will be able to participate automatically without need of relogging in again. I also want to confirm that the sessions are being recorded. We will be able to share the recordings that have taken place, and also reconfirm to the public that we have not closed the window in terms of receiving your comments. This session was meant to receive any additional comments that might come in addition to what has already been received in writing through the email address that was provided, that is KCARS 2021 at kcaa.or.ke. So we'll still be receiving your comments, and the concern by Mr. Omar is well noted. We'll be advised accordingly on how that will be resolved. However, as I'd mentioned earlier, we'd wish to take a break so that the airworthiness team that is with us can respond to some of the questions that had been raised in the morning when we were undertaking the personnel licensing regulations. So we'll proceed on a break. That's a 10 minutes break to have our airworthiness team come and join us and respond to the answers that had been raised. To give answers to some of the questions that had been raised during the first session, which is the personnel licensing regulations part. Thank you very much and see you in the next session.